Hi guys, welcome back to the Unimportance Season podcast. It is just me and Pascal this time. No Mike, but hopefully you enjoyed last week's episode with Mike. And if you didn't watch it or you didn't listen to it, I'm telling you now, Mike Chalice is the new coach on the team, which is very exciting and we're very happy to have him. But I'm just here with Pascal, and Pascal is repping the new clothing line as well. So I'm going to do another shout out and another sales pitch.
Yeah.
Looking fly in the, how is it? How are you liking it?
I very much like it. So whenever kids asked you in the past, when you were younger, when you were a kid yourself, Steve, what's your favorite color? Were you very much aware what your favorite color was? So did you have a favorite color since your entire life that was that color?
Not really. I think I just flip-flopped with whatever I felt at the time. I like a lot of colors, to be fair.
Because I've realized over the past 3-4 years that kind of green, like military green and also British racing green, that is kind of my color that I don't know what it is about that color, but I just like that.
Yeah. No, I
that's why
actually really like it as well.
The clothing as well, it's just like, oh, yes, that's my thing. So, yeah.
Running over. I just took mine off because I was complaining about the heating coming on and I just trained and I was too hot, but I've got
It's also a good color.
Maroon.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's nice. The colors you picked were very nice, in fact. And yeah, it's cool to be able to have that and wear it and have a little bit of a different take on the logo.
Exactly. Because, I mean, the other things that we had before that was merchandise. It was very much kind of Revive Stronger coaching. This is something that I feel everyone can wear who's even not into kind of feeling connected with a brand or maybe even doesn't really like our brand. I would say and go as far in saying that people wouldn't even purchase that clothing line. But yeah, I think it just looks good. And it also fits well and all.
And actually, I guess I'm thinking we're going to have the kind of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I don't know why I'm doing this really, because this comes out like Monday, so it'll be Cyber Monday, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll have the discount code still live, so if people want to pick up and get 10% off, they can.
Yeah.
And I'm now scrambling to try and remember in my head what the discount code is, but it'll be in the description, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Down below, you can
easy.
find it. You still then have a couple of hours left before it's then actually expired. But yeah, feel free to actually pick up some things. The support is always appreciated. And if you then pick something up and you are one of those influencers over on Instagram or TikTok, where if that's your thing, then make sure to tag us. I mean, over on TikTok, I'm not at TikTok, so you have to tag Steve. Can you even tag people there? Probably, right? I have no idea. I'm a boomer.
I told you I'd been taking all my reels and putting them on TikTok for a while, and I just it feels so foreign as a platform, and I just can't get to grips with it. And when you don't enjoy it, I was just dropping them there and leaving, and then sometimes people would comment, and I was like, oh man, I just don't want. We're in a good position where YouTube and the podcast, we get a bunch of people watching, thankfully, and Instagram is we've got a bunch of people there. If they both died, and then we'd have an email list. We've have a bit of a Facebook group actually, so we have some security blankets. But TikTok is we'd have to start from scratch pretty much.
I'm curious, what's next? Right, because there will be at some point a different platform that people jump onto. It's just, I'm curious, what's next? What's to come?
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It's going to be like, I don't know, like 4D or like you put on, what's it called when you put on the specs and you can be
VR,
like virtual reality, social media weirdness. I don't know.
Yeah, the metaverse is coming. So. Yeah,
you just plug, or the Matrix, you just plug yourself into
that would be amazing,
seat.
Wouldn't it? I mean, that would be really amazing to have it like this, that you can just upload kind of files, and then all of a sudden you are kind of a mixed martial arts master. That would be freaking amazing, man.
That would be pretty cool.
I already loved that idea when I was younger and watched Matrix. I was just like, oh man, that would be fucking amazing. Just imagine.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if you've seen on Netflix, they have a new anime. I don't know if it's new altogether, but it's called Cyberpunk, I think it's called.
I watched it already.
And
it's based on a game, on a video game.
Okay. Yeah, I've watched, I don't know how many episodes. So just whenever I've got a bit of time and I'm waiting for Charlotte before we watch something else, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to tune into this. And that's where they upload all those, like the cyber tech and like that machine that goes on his spine and everything. It's just like completely fucked.
No, absolutely. What's cracking on your end, Steve? What are you up to? Training, nutritionally speaking.
Yeah, I'm in week 3 of the mesocycle now. And this will be a good kind of topic to talk about potentially. I was considering last week to go onto my story and be like, man, I don't know how I'm going to hit my numbers for the rest of this mesocycle, because it was tough. Like I was in week 2 and I was like, man, that was tough. And I very often get that early in the mesocycle where I'm like, especially on leg training, but I continuously surprise myself as I go through. But I almost didn't want to voice it because I was like, I don't know, sometimes when you voice those things, or one, I didn't want to look like a fool and like hit my fit, like, I don't know, like I was in not RAR failing in like week 3. And I don't know, partly like if I voice it sometimes, then it comes true where I'm like, yeah, I kind of cooked myself too early. But then I essentially did post it yesterday where I was like, actually, I got a renewed sense of hope because like sessions have been going well this week and I think I can. And I don't know if you ever get that where you're early in your mesocycle and you're like, man, have I cooked myself too soon? And then you surprise yourself that you can actually keep going.
Oh, yeah. I think it happened a couple of times already, and probably more often than you can now remember. But I'm kind of in nearly the exact same spot right now, but because I needed to extend this mesocycle because I have a tattoo session coming up in December. And I thought like, all right, let's just extend the mesocycle for like 6 weeks in total. So take it a little bit easier than, not easier, but kind of more conservative throughout the mesocycle. I'm already now in week number 4 and I'm just like, I need to take additional rest days here and there just to be able to extend the mesocycle. And yet still I'm going in and I'm still able to progress, but it is challenging and I'm coming up to my limits as well. It's not the same as your situation because I'm probably not going in there really kind of very much thinking that I'm absolutely fried or so, or thinking that I can't really put some new PRs on the platform or anything I like. But it's similar to what you're going through as well, and also just like touching on kind of maybe being able to either sometimes extend the mesocycle or sometimes needing to cut it short even.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it was partly influenced because I was Smith machine squatting and I thought they'd sorted, I was Smith machine squatting and the Smith machine like came out and it collapsed or whatever on me as I was squatting. They pushed it back under like the skirting board to like keep it secure. And I hadn't seen it come out from there when I'd been doing it. But on watching a video back, it's the rack had slowly shifted a little bit.
Oh.
And so I think that movement made the set feel harder than it should have.
Yeah.
So I just know next week's I need to put some weights on it so it doesn't shift.
Why aren't they drilling some kind of screws into the floor?
They said the owner did say she was going to, but I guess they like having I don't think barely anything in the gym is screwed down. But I think they like.
Isn't it needed maybe from a security perspective? Because you can very much kind of get hurt if you really think about it.
I think that's why they put it under a skirting board thinking that would be enough. But clearly, if you're like, I'm pushing up, but also it's kind of pushing back against it as well because it's my quads moving forward. So it's clearly not enough. So
it's like that meme, that one with a door and then there's just kind of a crisp or a chip hanging there to secure the door lock.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Security measures, something like this,
Yeah, I'm creating my own security measures. I'm going to have to put some plates down. So I think that also led me to thinking it was like wet, like it felt harder than it should have been. But it also reminded me and related to your post where you're talking about as you're getting more advanced, you have to go through, like it should feel uncomfortable. Like if you're training, if sometimes you aren't questioning like, man, can I actually do this session? And not from necessarily like, I think less from a volume perspective because that's just exhausting. It's actually from like a load and repetition goal perspective. Yeah. If you're looking at that, you should look now and then and be like, holy shit, can I actually do this?
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I think as long as you nail stuff, in my experience, you can. and you kind of just like you can surprise yourself.
Yeah,
which is
and
nice.
I think which is basically bringing us down to kind of overthinking the perfection of technique, for example, when you never really challenge yourself, getting into new territories that feel foreign to you. Are you really pushing yourself that much? And this is where many people then revisit their technique from the slightest moment when they don't really have the greatest mind-muscle connection anymore, where there's a slight breakdown in technique. They are immediately dropping the load by 5 to 10 kilograms. And by that, always kind of pushing up and coming down, pushing up and coming down, and never really progressing. And I think that with everything in life, you need to challenge yourself in order to get better with certain things, right? Yeah,
and I think to your point there, it's a tough one because I think Brian Miner's done a great job of kind of demonstrating that in terms of the chicken and the egg. Like, you don't have to hit the PR to grow. The PR is showing that you've grown. But if you don't consistently push for PRs, are you doing the training that's going to lead to the PR? I don't know. So I'm like, it kind of doesn't matter at the end of the day. You still have to make sure that you're continuously testing yourself and pushing your bounds because I do think, especially as you get more advanced, it's just that much harder to make adaptations, and it feels harder as well. And it sometimes feels wrong, and it becomes more of a mental game, especially with legs. And that's why it's so great when you have someone. I've had a few clients recently where they've gone through their first mesocycle, where they started out where they thought was like tough training. They thought was 3 or 4 RAR, but then we've got to this like week before deload, and they're getting like maybe 2-3 extra reps from the last week. And I'm like, well, then last week wasn't 1 RAR, was it? It was more like 3 RAR. And they're like, oh, man, last week was tough. And I'm like, that's where we start.
Yeah.
Like this, like 3-4 RAR is not easy. Like, it's really tough training if you're doing it properly. And I think that's slowly the industry has cottoned onto that. And I think that it led to so many problems of kind of excessive volume because people were starting too easy. And I certainly was there at times. And it's kind of just going through. Sometimes you just have to go through that process and learn.
Yeah, I think we've all been there at some point, probably, because it is very tough to just push it all the time. And that's why I'm also so much convinced that the people who are claiming that they are always training to failure aren't training to failure all the time. Simply because it's so physically and mentally demanding to always going there. And also physiologically speaking, it should be nearly impossible from a just muscle physiology perspective to always be able to push to absolute momentary muscular failure.
It's the same. And it's often the same people, unfortunately, who say they don't deload. And then I'm just like,
yeah,
what? This is two things that just don't make any logical sense to me. Like it reinforces like the deloading every kind of 6th or so week, something along that, it's like 5th or 6th week that I've been doing for a long period of time. Like it works so well for just linear progression and moving forward. And I can't imagine trying to push through training weeks like that. Like it would lead to junk volume. It would lead to detriments in performance very, very quickly. So it's still people try and push back against that. And anyway, so that's absolutely. Training. That was just something I had with training. But otherwise, training's going pretty good. Nothing like, I think I was mentioning I had that back niggle as I was going into this mesocycle. That's completely, touch wood, it's almost gone. It's nothing that I'm really noticing when I train, but sometimes when I'm out of the gym, I'm like, oh, my back. Like I tweak it a little bit, but nothing much. So all injuries and everything are good. Weight was weird. I kind of spiked up quickly last week and I hit some heavier weights than I would have been right for my rate of gain. But then
where are you sitting at right now?
So last week was an average of like nearly 193 pounds.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So this week it's been 192 all week. So sometimes you get these kind of spikes and then it levels itself out. So when I look at my kind of projection in terms of, I kind of do a percentage of 0.25 to 0.5, kind of where would I be since the mini cut, I'm towards the lower end. So I've pretty much consistently been gaining it on average 0.25% per week, which is good because I don't really want to have to push food higher. So I'm hoping I'm not going to adapt at the moment to it for a little bit. And from memory, I haven't had to have gone above 4,000 calories unless I'm pushing towards 200 pounds or above. It's just whether or not my steps are a little higher because I'm doing all of Ada's walking at the moment. So that's the only tricky thing. But I'm pleased with like how the physique's looking and everything. And like appetite is still good. All those measures are still in a good place. So I'm very pleased about that. And yeah, I just got a renewed, I don't know, the end of this season, like when we see these shows, I know we want to touch on it, but WNBF Worlds was just this past weekend.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of like memories that popped up from last year. And it just gives you that renewed, like, oh man, I got to go to Worlds again. I got to be there. Like it just looks, it's such a good time.
Yeah. On that note, when you're now looking back at your pictures and at the last season, because there has been now quite a long time in between, and as we know, you're then emotionally way more detached from it, and you can make way better objective decisions and also assessments of your physique and all. Now looking back, do you see something that you would have liked to change or so?
I actually don't think so. I think I think to expect perfection from a contest prep is really challenging. So I don't even know what would have been the perfect thing. I posted that I had like 1 to 2 pounds for sure to come off. I could have taken 1 to 2 pounds off. I don't even know where that would necessarily come from, but it was like glutes are where that is the only, well, yeah, glutes and maybe lower back for a bit more leanness to come through, a bit more sharpness within the glutes. They were in to a certain degree, and I was definitely one of the most conditioned at World. So it wouldn't have benefited me anymore. I wouldn't have placed any higher. I could have probably been a couple of pounds softer, and I still would have placed where I placed, I think, within the lineup I was against. But looking back, it reinforced, especially when I was looking at some video footage and not just photos. Like I was just checking out like my vlogs and some other people's vlogs. Actually, I was just checking over because I seen they'd done those. It reinforced actually how much muscle mass I'm holding, and that I'm actually in a quite like in the WNBF at the WF UK. I was one of the bigger, more muscular guys on the stage, and I was like, oh fuck, like, and it kind of made me think on a different day I could have placed quite. I think I could have placed differently, but then I also looked at the scorecards. I don't know if I told you that they sent us the scorecards.
Yeah,
you may have seen them actually because you came fourth in your class, and I was thinking, fuck me, in your class, the guys that came first and second, they could have been in open and placing. So you really came like second in like who I think are true novices. So again, I was just thinking, big props to Pascal for that kind of placing actually. But then I was looking at it, I was like, man, I had 22. And I think third place got like 15 or something. So I was miles behind the top 3, according to those score sheets. So I'm just like, man, I really got work to do, because then the guys who were like 5th and 6th were only 2 points up above me. So I had 22, it was 24, then 26. And then it was like 15, 11, 7, I think were the first, second, and third. So I was like, man, how, like I gotta just be even more like, I think it's called Gary Alimica, I forget his last name exactly. Armlinger, that's the one. Sorry. Obviously,
which is funny because it sounds like a German last name. Armlinger.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to pronounce it, but like he's a beast, heavyweight pro.
Yeah,
I think he came third in the heavyweight pro class.
I always kind of confuse who came at what placing. It's more like what leaves an impression on me is kind of the way that people look. Yeah. And that just goes to show how maybe then the outside people perceive things of placing. Yeah. Placings are kind of unimportant for the outsiders. Maybe it's then important for the person itself, but I don't care if someone is placing second or third or, I don't know, 7th. If he's looking great, man, props to you, honestly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, looking at him, I hadn't seen a lot of photos of his physique before. He's got a dense physique, but he is not, and I hope, I don't mean any offense to Gary, because I think he's done tremendously. Like he's a heavyweight pro, he came, third, second in the world. I think he came third. But he doesn't have beautiful structure. Like the guy that took like the heavyweight pro, he took the overall pro card as well. Pro card. The overall, out of all the pros, he came first, and he has everything. He has huge amounts of muscle. He is very dense and beautiful structure. Whereas Gary and also Ben, like both heavily muscled, shredded, but they don't have beautiful structure in some ways. But it just gave me a bit of kind of hope for myself in that, like, man, if they're like pros placing in pro shows, like if I can gain enough mass on this physique because of my structure, like I can battle somehow. So I don't know, it was nice seeing it, because again, I always think of natural bodybuilding as a bit top trumps. Like, yeah, the best of the best are going to have every kind of power in their favor and they're going to score well everywhere. But a lot of people like have some strengths, some weaknesses, and you might just be able to edge someone out because you could be that heavily muscled. So yeah, it was cool.
And especially in natural bodybuilding, I think that the people who have it all, most of the times the people who you don't see in natural bodybuilding, that is not meant in an offensive way to natural bodybuilding. But if you have it all, then you have the potential of making money off of that. When you then jump on gear, you have great potential then overall, right? Yeah. And that is where then most people make the jump, because it is very apparent very early on in your lifting career that you have what it takes, that you probably have all of those three components, or at least two of them are very, very emphasized. So some people, they don't have a great structure, but they are humongous. And if you have a trait like this, of course, you can also then outplace other people as well, because it's just so ridiculous. But yeah, it's just most of the time not really seen in natural bodybuilding often. And that's why the person that we've touched on and talked about, now this time I forgot about the name, that German guy that I actually talked about or brought up last time. Well, kind of...
Fabian? Or?
No, Farid, who was kind of at the WMBF Worlds as well. That wasn't the one that I was talking about, but Daniel Kubik? No, that was Patrick Teutsch. Patrick Teutsch.
Yeah.
He's just insane. Right? He's a phenomenon. And people such as him, you don't really see that often in natural bodybuilding, because he would have what it takes to actually then go on gear and probably even be highly competitive there. And if you have the chance, I don't blame anyone. Well, in general, I don't blame anyone jumping on gear, but especially then making that decision, because if you then can be highly competitive and make money off of that, I mean, would you blame someone for that? Absolutely not, But this is something that we've touched on, Steve. We are always talking highly about the competitiveness in the British natural bodybuilding scene. But holy fuck, man, since like years, German bodybuilders, and also probably Austrian bodybuilders, but especially the German language areas, they produce top tier quality natural bodybuilders. And year after year, they are always kind of up there. Like top three, always placing, and especially this year, it was absolutely crazy. The amount of high-level natural bodybuilders that came out of Germany, and I've brought up kind of Daniel Kubik, Patrick Teutsch, for example, then here Farid, who competed at the WMBF, and then there was someone else as well. Just look at the Austrian, what was it again? The ANBF, the lineup at the ANBF. This was insane. And this is just kind of the norm that comes out of Germany. And I don't know what's going on here, because I'm living in Germany and I clearly don't drink or don't eat what they are eating. I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on in Germany. There's something going on. So
yeah, those
put up
guys,
the tinfoil hat.
The middleweight who won the pro class, and Andy Chappelle came second to him, and Alberto Nunez came fifth in that class. But I think Alberto must have been one of the lightest in that class, because I think he just missed being out of the lightweights, and so he had to really battle in that class.
And the quads of Farid, it was just insane,
ridiculous, so dense.
Yeah.
And his color also was really good. Like I don't know, it just emphasized just this huge beast of a man.
Is it Farid? Was it Farid?
I thought it was definitely BM with an F, which is why I said Fabian, but I can't remember exactly, so I apologize. If he listens, he probably won't. But
yeah, absolutely. And who's to blame, right? I can't really recall and remember each name of each and every bodybuilder. Right? It's just ridiculous guys coming out of Germany. I don't know.
And then, Patrick, I think he's even an IFBB pro.
Yeah, he is.
And I only know I know him as Baba No Stress. I've forgotten what Baba's last name is. Babacar. So he is also an IFBB pro. I'm pretty certain he is. And they, again, neither of them came to Worlds. But if they did, Oh man, that would have been a crazy.
Yeah. And then there was this discussion like earlier in this year if natural bodybuilding is dead. And I think that this year, I don't know why, as if everyone in the natural bodybuilding scene has heard about this and wanted to actually then prove the people wrong, coming out and just like destroying that discussion. Because this year was actually quite crazy when it comes to the lineups.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of Austrian competitors, Max from Austria, he trains in Das Gym. He won the Supernaturals and he went pro here, and he was like standout winner. He was in that middle class weight, like, and he didn't come in that top 5. Nothing against him at all, but like, this is like the people in that. It was lots of amazing pros came out who would just like win shows, like easy, like win a show. Like they're all like winners. I mean, Alberto won a pro show coming into this and he came 5th, of course. So it's just like the caliber this year at WNBF Worlds was like wild. At least particularly in the pro classes.
Yeah, but it once again goes to show that you can't control who's showing up, right? And no matter how you placed before, it doesn't really matter, right? You can easily sometimes win a show and then come in 7th or 8th in a different show. And that doesn't mean that you're a shitty bodybuilder or you look awful or anything alike. It just means that other people will probably be much, much better. And that's, I mean, come on, let's be real here. Everything in life is like that. No matter what it is that you're doing, you are probably not the very best. And that's all right. That's all right. How delusional do you have to be to start something believing that you will be the very best? What are the odds, especially considering how many people there are on planet Earth right now? We're closing in now on 8 billion people.
We've hit it. We hit 8 billion.
Oh, we hit it now. Yeah. So just thinking that you will be the very, very, very best of anything, it's just the chances are so low that you would be absolutely foolish to think that way. All right?
Yeah. It reminds me, I don't know why this is reminding me of, is it in Pokemon, in the theme tune? He goes, I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. Did you see that Ash also won the Pokemon like World Finals?
I didn't see that, no.
It was in the news. I was like, why
just
is this
recently?
Made the news? Yeah, recently.
It took him, what was it then, 20 years or 30 years to actually do it? Props to him.
He officially can call himself the very best.
And did he have grey hair as well now? Or
he's still, like 12? I don't know.
He's still 12? Fucking hell, what's going on with Ash?
This is an anime I don't keep up to date with, but seeing him win made me want to, like, I want to watch like the match or whatever. Oh dear. Actually, I want to. It's a selfish question, but also the listeners talking of anime. Your tattoos remind me and the audience what you're getting done. The anime, right?
Oh yeah. So on one side, I'm getting Luffy from One Piece. On the other end, I'm getting Kaido, also from One Piece. I was originally planning in getting some other characters on there, but the problem is with the hand, finding a proper character for it that suits or is a good place on the hand, because what I wanted to avoid is something that is too awfully looking. So I didn't want it to come across like, I don't know, too aggressive. Something with blood or kind of sharp teeth and all that kind of stuff is something that I wanted to avoid, especially because I have 2 small kids at home. And also, I didn't really want to come across as someone who's kind of, I don't know, a tattooed, aggressive individual. Right? So that's why there were already a lot of things out of the occasion. Because at very first, I want, of course, at some point I want to get some Attack on Titans tattoos, just because this is my most favorite anime. But getting a Titan on my hands is a little bit too much, because it's kind of a monster. And this is something that I didn't want to reflect to the outside. That's why I wanted to actually go with something that is a character that I like, but also doesn't really look too dangerous, doesn't really look too aggressive, and that's why I opted then for that. So yeah,
you could get one of the abnormal Titans.
No, I also wanted to get something
People would be like,
colorful.
"What is
Yeah, and I wanted to get something that is a little bit more colorful, right? So as you may know, I'm into colored tattoos, and that's why it needed to also be something that is not just like skin color, because then it doesn't really pop out.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Yeah, I see that. No, very exciting. And it's One Piece. I haven't even watched any episodes of it, but what I see of it, it does look like something I should try and watch, but it's overwhelming. I don't know. Is there like over 1,000 episodes or something?
1,043 right now, if I remember correctly.
Wow. But I think Naruto's like 700 or something. So if I can have watched that, I can get through. Just have to, I don't know if there's as many filler episodes as there is in Naruto.
There are many fillers, but I'm not entirely certain whether there are so many as in Naruto, because the good thing is, especially when it comes to the normal arcs, there aren't kind of any filler arcs in the arc themselves. And this is something that, for example, Dragon Ball did all the time. Also Naruto did all the time, that sometimes you couldn't really tell, like, is that still part of it or isn't it? Same goes for Bleach. Sometimes, so I needed to Google it, what a filler episode is, so that I could skip that, because I hate filler arcs and episodes. And with One Piece, especially the latter seasons now, the latter arcs, you don't really have any kind of significant fillers in there, which is great. Especially One Piece is one of those animes that gets better and better and better, and that is so mind-blowing, because it is one of the longest lasting or longest running shows of all time, or animes of all time. It is, I think, the longest running anime of all time, and that it consistently gets better and better is actually quite mind-blowing, because
normally it's worse.
It actually just goes downhill at some point. And it has gotten better and better and better and better. And it just keeps on getting better. And it's incredible, to be honest. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm making my way through Hunter. Is it Hunter times Hunter? Or I think it's Hunter X Hunter, isn't it? That's how you say it.
I always like to say Hunter X Hunter, which is also something that I'm watching right now another time together with Katie.
Ah. Yeah, I love the relationship between Gon and Killua. It's just like, oh my god, great. Like they're so good together. They bounce off each other so well. But there's barely any filler in that. Like, almost zero. So yeah, that's been cool. Yeah. Anyway, off the anime chat, I'm just indulging myself. For you, how's training, nutrition? Any changes on that front? Obviously, you're in week 4 now, so
no, training is going finally well again. After kind of 2 times of being sick for like 2 weeks, there was a little bit of gap in between where I couldn't really push that hard. I needed to take additional rest days. The last time, luckily though, on the deload that I took was the time when I needed to also recover from then the sickness, but it took me another week to then get back into the groove of things. Right now I'm there and ticking just off the boxes, and ticking up now with the body weight as well, 79 kilograms, somewhere around there. We'll probably push to somewhere around 80, and then probably push back with a mini cut again, so that I then can push forward another time. And funny enough, I just, before we went on to this podcast, there was someone commenting on a very old video of mine back from 2020, and I was actually there in a gaining phase in the summertime. And now looking back, I even think like, hey, I didn't look too shabby actually, which makes me then want to maybe push the body weight up again a little bit more so. But I don't like my face during that time. That's the problem.
How heavy were you back then?
Must have been like 86, 87, I think,
Okay.
which is too high in my opinion. I think the max that I would like to push up to would be somewhere around right now, 82 kilograms, somewhere around there. And I think everything beyond that is unnecessary for me right now. Of course, in the future, because you always want to see the body weight trending up with a better body composition. But I think everything beyond 82 simply doesn't really look good anymore.
Yeah, you don't hit the same sort of appetite and well-being wall that I do. Like, you still generally feel good at higher body fats and your appetite's fine. So yeah, it's a bit more of a easier wall that I hit, and I can confirm whether or not I need to do it. So okay, that's interesting. I do actually have, I don't know if you have any questions or anything, but I have something that we could cover for the last half.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So Dave McConey tagged me in a video of his, which was 5 things I wish I knew before lifting. And so I was thinking we could cover that. I'm thinking I'm going to do a vlog on it as well, but I thought, why not cover it in the improvement season 2, and then also get both of our perspectives on that. So I don't know if you have anything on mind, or I've actually already listed 5 things. I don't know if they're actually the 5 that I think, but they are 5 things that definitely come to mind.
It's a tough one, because if you're kind of, someone is asking you for your favorite movie and you didn't really have the time to think about it. And you're probably giving an answer that you actually don't really stand behind, but it's just because someone is asking you for your take right now. It's the same when it comes to judges' feedback, for example. When you ask a judge for their feedback, they will give you feedback, but whether it is the appropriate feedback or warranted feedback is besides the point. When you ask for someone for their opinion, hardly ever will anyone tell you like, sorry, but I don't know. That's most of the time what people don't do, unfortunately, right? And then with the 5 things, I will just, of course, go just off by the things that pop into my mind now, instead of giving it plenty of thought. And I would very much assume that after this podcast episode, if I had a little bit more time to think about it, and then, I should have said this.
It's the sort of question you could overthink really easily, though. Like I kind of wanted, I haven't watched Dave's video, so I don't know what 5 things he said, but because I was like, I don't want to watch it because then I bet I'll be influenced just to say the 5 things he says. So I was like, I just want to 5 things that immediately come to mind that I think, man, I wish I knew that before I started.
Do you want to start with point number 1 for you, and then we can do point 1 for you, point 1 for me, point 2?
And then if there's overlap, and that there probably will be. So one of mine was definitely the importance of technique and executing it for you and like your physique. So I just thought there was like perfect technique and I had to perform it in a certain way. But also before that, I just didn't even really think about technique at all and what that even meant. I just kind of went into the gym. I didn't have I don't know about you, Pascal, but everything I learned from the beginning was all self-taught. I didn't have a PT. I didn't kind of have any coach at that time. I just went into the gym and just did stuff. And consequently, I injured my left shoulder because I just didn't have good technique. I thought it was all about load and just pushing myself. So that's definitely one of the ones I wish I realized was like, when I first go into the gym, don't just go with intensity, think technique first. And I wish I had someone who kind of kept me there. But I think a lot of young men especially get into the gym and they think, let's go hard, rather than, let's get my technique nice and like in a good place, depending what sport you go into. But if it's bodybuilding, you're like muscle growth, you don't tend to go with the let's lift this really prettily kind of technique. That
would have definitely. So I typed down now 5 things, and once again I don't know whether these are the ones that I actually stand behind, but technique would be one of them as well, because I think early on in my lifting career, I wasted a lot of time. I've probably even damaged myself, for example, with my hip, because I squatted in a way so often that wasn't really suited for my body composition. So back then, like in 2013, 14, powerlifting was primarily dominated by the people of Starting Strength, Texas Method, West Side Barbell, and they all kind of recommended kind of wide stance squatting styles and so, right? And that was not the way that I was supposed to squat. And I've tried it. And I had horrendous technique. When I now look back, I'm just like, man, this was awful. And I wish that I would have been smarter back then, which brings me to kind of, I would say then point number 2, that I didn't know jack shit. And I was so convinced that I did. So typical Dunning-Kruger effect. I was so convinced that I had it all figured out because I was informing myself on a daily basis, reading blogs, watching YouTube videos, the very few that were available back then. There weren't really many fitness influencers back then. Mostly reading them blogs, reading articles and newsletters, and I didn't know anything at all. And the funny thing is, I have still my entire Reddit message kind of tree. And there was a time where I was actually looking back at my very first messages. The things that I've asked were just like funny because now you look back and of course, these are the things that other people are asking as well now. And for you, it's just a ridiculous question sometimes, right? Like, how don't you know this? But in reality, you always need to realize how far you've come as well. But back then, I was even in a discussion with someone else. And that sentence just proved how full I was of myself and how much I didn't actually know. Because I was saying, like 9 years ago, believe me, my technique is rock solid. I'm into powerlifting, so I have to. And now I'm looking back at myself like a couple of or nearly 10 years later, and I cringe so freaking badly about what I said there, how I saw myself, how I perceived my training to be like, and I've pissed away years because I didn't know how to train properly, and I thought that I know way more than I actually did.
Yeah, I totally feel you with that. I wasn't on Reddit. I actually don't even have a Reddit account. I need to get one because I quite often search stuff and it says like you need an account to be able to see whatever into this chat or whatever it is. But if Reddit always comes up with my random searches for things. Anyway, I was on a fitness forum, but it's been completely destroyed now. It doesn't exist anymore. I used to actually go back to that for content. Because I'd be like, what sort of stuff was I talking about? What sort of things was I saying? Because like you said, like past you is often what other people are thinking and saying, and you want to kind of help people expedite that progress and not have to make all the mistakes that you've made. So I think that's a great one. And I guess actually kind of as a point, like I guess your point is not to be so full of yourself, to be a bit more like humble in your knowledge and that sort of thing.
And just be aware of your unawareness or your so basically be aware of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Be aware of the things that you don't know, right? Because that implies then all of those other things. Don't be too full of yourself, and which brings me to another point. And I don't know whether we should just quickly cover that one as well. Get a coach. Honestly, I know this comes from a very biased perspective because we are coaches ourselves. But because I said I've pissed away years because I was so convinced that I had it all figured out, and I've wasted years of potential time under the bar in building muscle mass, telling me that I need to build muscle mass instead of kind of cutting. Also telling me, shouting out of like, hey man, your technique is shit. We need to work on it. The way that you're eating right now is fucking shit, right? Because I then at some point run into issues with not only physiologically speaking due to my hip, so I needed to actually then undergo surgery. Secondary though, at some point, because I was so awful at actually eating, I was running into issues then when I was doing my first like proper cutting phase into binge eating behavior. And that is because I developed over years a shitty behavior with food, and there was no one actually calling me out on how fucked up my relationship with food is. All of those things, like technique, muscle, building muscle mass, being constantly in a deficit, calling me out on the relationship with food, calling me out on sleep not being optimized, etc., could have been taken care of getting a coach. Right? And that, it could have changed everything. You know? So this would have probably been the biggest thing. Get a coach.
Did you hear me try and say? I said a good coach.
A good coach.
That would have been the hard part, I think.
Absolutely.
Especially at that time. There weren't so many, there's a lot of options now.
Yeah.
But I don't even know who, I suppose I did get a coach for my first contest prep. And I do think that helped. Absolutely helped. Because I was clueless to like how to do peak week and refeeds and all of that stuff. So that definitely did help me in a big way. So I like that point. Get a coach could basically, 5 things I wish before lifting: get a coach, 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 and then it solves. Or rather, get a good coach.
Yeah, because if you're open to listen to a coach, and that is the first hurdle and the first challenge. You really need to be willing to change and willing to apply the feedback. And I think that back then, because I was so full of myself, I wouldn't have listened, because I thought that I know better and all that kind of stuff. But if you're willing to do this, then the coach, a good coach, can actually steer you into the right direction and change your entire future with it when it comes to that athletic endeavor. Yeah. And once again, I think that my athletic journey could have looked quite different to where I'm at right now. Perhaps less injuries, perhaps way more muscle mass already, because probably I wasted kind of several years of just figuring things out on my own.
I know one of the things that held me back for a long time, which was one of my points, was just literally the importance of energy balance. Because when I started lifting at like late 15, up until I was like, had my accident when I was 20, I had no idea of energy balance. I just knew protein was important and eat clean. Like that was my knowledge. And so I spanned my wheels for ages because I just underfed myself all the time. It wasn't like I was trying to lose fat, but it was just like, okay, I can eat as much as I want of clean food and let's minimize dirty food and I won't gain fat. Like that was I thought dirty food gained fat, clean food gained muscle. Like I just thought it was like that equation. But I worked myself into the kind of ground for like 4 years basically doing all of that. And it wasn't until I came like out of the accident that I was like, how do I gain weight? Because I've lost weight and I've never even experienced losing weight before. I never even like really weighed myself before that. So that could have been 4 years saved, I think.
Yeah,
definitely.
I have that point as well of like eating properly, which once again comes under the umbrella getting a coach who then kind of calls you out on this. But for me personally, I was eating like shit. And I think that over the entirety of the Improvement Season podcast, we've talked about it several times of the way that I ate during a time, to a certain time. You the same as well, right, Steve, with kind of getting a lot of steps in as well. So many unnecessary things that then created a bad relationship with food. And right now I can say that I am probably eating in the most adult-like, I don't know whether this is the right term, but kind of in the most, how should I phrase it? Because I can't really put it into
mature?
A good...
Does that work?
I don't know whether I would call it mature, because what is mature eating? What is a mature way of eating? If you were to ask like Charlotte, she would say like, I don't know, I'm eating whatever I want, right? For example, but she's able to stop whenever she wants as well also, right? And she can just enjoy things without having in the back of her mind macros or something. So there are of course many facets to what mature eating means, but in the sense that in our understanding of what mature means, yes, for sure, that is the most mature way. I can actually switch off my mind. I don't need to track the macros in my head anymore. But at the same time, I can even have a piece of chocolate without overindulging, without losing control. And I don't even have the sense anymore that I need to have more. It is as good as never before. And that took me, though, years of actually working diligently on it and even derailing at some point. And that I wish that someone would have told me earlier, like, okay, this is how you are supposed to eat, and not like if it fits your macros, right? If it fits your macros, sounds freaking amazing on paper, but the way that people actually use it, if it fits your macros, is abusing and not using it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. A lot of people do go that way. I think I was fortunate with that because I came from the background of thinking there was clean and dirty foods. And then I was like, oh, what if it fits your macros? Completely slaps that in its face, because it's like the macros are all that matter. So I only slowly, like, I was like, oh, I allow myself to have, like, I don't know, some cereal post-workout. So, oh, how's my physique doing? Oh, no, I haven't gained a load of fat. So I've always been on the kind of, I definitely had an orthorexic period in my life. And again, I didn't understand energy balance at that time. And I was all just focused on kind of, again, like if a food can be good or bad. So yeah, I'm completely with you there. Another point I have, which I imagine you might have something similar, is there are no must-do exercises, and find what suits you and your kind of physiology, and don't kind of think. For me, at least, it was like, I thought I had to deadlift. I thought I had to overhead press. I had to squat. For the longest time, I thought for my quads, I needed to squat. It's just quite clearly over time, I've realized it's just not the thing that's growing my quads the best. Yeah. So it was, it's just, and it seems stupid. It's like thinking, again, it's kind of similar to the good or bad foods. It's like thinking there's inherently foods you must eat or must avoid. It's like, no, you need the right balance for you or what have you. So yes, there can be better and worse potentially, but it's the same with exercises. Like because it's a barbell basic lift doesn't mean it's inherently better and you have to do it. So learning that would have saved me a lot of like just heartache, I think.
I had something else, but I think I will actually cross it for what it is that you've talked about as well, simply because I would rephrase it though, change it slightly for the way that I did train. If you want to build muscle mass, you have to train to build muscle mass. And that is something that I didn't do for a very long time. But the best example is the time after my surgery, like in 2016 to 17. I was recovering then. I was actually on crutches going into the gym. And instead of me then picking kind of machine-based movements, no, I was so adamant that I still need to use free weighted movements. And it made the entire process so much harder. Still wanted to go into the gym, but man, how fucking idiotic do you have to be to walk on crutches and then try to carry a dumbbell over to the bench and do dumbbell pressing? Kind of, what the fuck, man? Just go to a machine press, right? And I didn't know any better. And I then also very early on, when I just take a look at my program, what I did and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't really training to build muscle mass. And also, I didn't know how to train. Like, what I was doing for a very long time was just moving weight from A to B. And also there, once again, pissing away years of training and years of time that you actually then spent in the gym. For, of course, you got a little bit of a return, but it could have been so much more, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, you're trying to save money. What it is that you're now doing is try to become a trader or so. Right? Instead of just like, I don't know, saving money, putting it onto a more conservative account or so, right? No, you try to maximize the profit. And in reality, you have no idea about the markets. You have no idea about trading. And basically all you do is kind of gambling. Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. And then in the end, you look back and realize, shit, I've just kind of wasted all of my money. And I should have just take the conservative route and invest over a longer period of time, and I would have been better off now. And the same goes there. I wish I knew how to train, basically. And if you want to train for a specific task, then train for that specific task.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that, because for the longest time I was doing basically power building. And I know it can work for some people, but I think some people, they just need that extra specificity when they're not doing those heavy kind of singles, the heavy barbell lifts. I was just getting exhausted from I'd like start my session with the heavy like barbell lifts, and then I'd be exhausted again trying to do lots of free weights like you for the rest. So I just really wouldn't get much of either. And that really held me back. And I'm super surprised. The one thing I didn't put in my top 5, which I'm definitely going to change, because the biggest thing that held me back, I think, was arbitrarily trying to stay lean. Like that's quite clearly one of the biggest things that held me back, was trying to stay leaner than what even makes sense, because I thought partitioning ratios and insulin sensitivity was a super important thing. And the leaner I was, the more muscle mass I'd gain. And in fact, it was almost the opposite. The more time I allowed my body weight to go up and be in a surplus, the more muscle mass I gained. So that's actually, I need to put that in my top 5. But we've probably covered 5 now, haven't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Once again, it's just interesting to always reflect back. And it's the same when it comes to politics, of course, right? Politicians can always, or are always, just wiser looking back in hindsight. You can only know in hindsight if something turned out to be good or bad.
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of the same here as well. However, the beauty about kind of training and nutrition is that we have some principles, we have some methodologies that we know work. And we have lots of people who went through those times and phases where it's not as complex as politics, for example. And the proven systems is something that you can start off with. And you are basically, rest assured that you are going to make progress. It's probably still better than you being full of yourself, trying to actually then implement the most fancy things or try to think that you know it better when in reality you lack the experience and knowledge. And this way, you're at least building something up. Alongside that, you can then educate yourself. And then after 5 or 10 years, you can then become very fancy with your program. But funny enough, once you get to that point, you don't want to make things fancy or complex anymore, because you don't have to, because you realize that the most boring things, the most simplistic things are most of the time the things that build actually muscle tissue and just change the physique.
Yeah. It is just those, you just become better at the basics. That's essentially what it comes down to. Because like sleep is basic, but you become better at kind of nailing that. Technique is basic, but you become better at nailing that. Effort is basic, but you become better at applying effort. It's all those things that really lead to a great physique, which is actually one of the points. I might remove it, I might not. But it's kind of essentially what you were saying there, the unimportance of small details, especially when they take away from the bigger principles. Yeah. It's like supplements, like fucking...
And the other point that I had, Steve, that I've exchanged was it takes time. Which is basically what it is that you said now about kind of stressing about the smaller details. And so, because I think it's just a common fallacy that many people fall into. It's independent of the fitness industry. I think that this is also a common practice in other areas as well, where then people start to focus on the things that actually don't really matter. Because I don't know why people are then drawn towards these things. They are always kind of, okay, this is for beginners, this is for advanced people, this is for very advanced people. And they always skip over the beginner section, when in reality, the beginner section, you have to perfect that before then the advanced things make any sense to you or even are relevant to you, right? Yeah. And if you don't, then you will spin around indefinitely, so to speak, but you will never actually get to the advanced level, even though that you're trying to walk around that area. And it takes freaking time. Realizing it earlier can save you years.
Yeah.
As funny as it sounds.
And injuries, maybe. Yeah. Which is, again, it all comes down to, like, if you have a good coach, this is where they save you time, they save you money, they can save you a ton. Yeah, not ever. It's also hard, I think, for a lot of people to let go. But listening to this podcast is a good start. And maybe you've heard some of these, you've made some of those mistakes yourself, or maybe you're thinking you're making some of those mistakes. And then a coach really can help, because they can shit test you, especially a good coach like Mike Chalice, who has availability. Actually, very limited availability, to be fair, because he's not full time yet. Maybe one day, don't know. But I mean,
you can always then reach out or go over to Revive Stronger /online coaching, apply there. And if you want to still wait for it, want to have a consultation with me or Steve or so, once slots are back open, of course, fill it in there as well. And don't be afraid of actually then trying it. And if you do so, though, take the time. Like, if you commit to working with a coach, and this is independent of wanting to work with us or someone else, I can only recommend to everyone who's listening and everyone who wants to work with a coach, take your time and commit to it more than just like a couple of weeks or more than just like a couple of months. This should be something where then probably you will first see kind of proper results after like a year to 2 years, maybe even a little bit longer, right? And this is something, if you decide to go down that route, you can't really make that judgment call after like 3 months and say like, oh no, that wasn't for me. Maybe from a personal perspective, but not from a result or progress perspective. Because as we've discussed now, it took me years to realize all of the mistakes that I did. And it would probably be the same for when you have like a coach and you're in the early stages of your lifting career to realize the beneficial things. You will only realize that in hindsight about all of the things that you've learned and all of the progress that you've made. It will take months and years, and this won't be quite apparent to you at first.
And do your due diligence and do like, if they do a consultation, make sure to have and ask your questions and make sure to figure them out. Make sure to, like we have on our online coaching page, or like get to know us, follow us on social media. If they're listening to this podcast, they probably know us pretty well, because you don't want to just jump in with, I don't know, big social media following dude who had some crazy transformation, because then you might not want to spend 2 years with them, because that might just waste your money. So do your research ahead of time, because it's a really great investment if you make the right investment.
Yeah.
So yeah, well said, Pascal.
Yeah, well said, Steve.
So with that out of the way, I'm going to end the podcast. Pascal normally does this role, and you're actually very good at it. So thank you for listening, guys. Hopefully there's been some interesting stuff there. We're leading ourselves into the end of the year now. We're coming towards Christmas. Definitely jump on the Black Friday sale if you do want any of our products. Again, the discount is going to be in the description. Again, if you do want coaching, that's all linked there too. You can go check it out. Like, subscribe, share it with all your loved ones and friends, because we know they're going to love this. And actually, in the comments, I'd love to know your 5 things you wish you knew before you started, because I'd love to see those and just see what other people have to say. Maybe I've left this too late in the podcast, no one will know. But if you're on YouTube, definitely comment below. And otherwise, I guess we'll catch you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.